Boom! Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. It is that time of day for us. My name is Samuel Davis III, and I am here today during election night 2024. This is a big night. Last week we spoke on fears and how we can be fed by our fears and overcoming fears and fear itself in general. Today I was saying to myself, now, should we talk about politics again? Should we talk about this stuff that's going to get everybody pissed off and fired up or excited? I don't know. And then I said, you know what? We just lost a legend last night. Let's talk about this guy. We lost Quincy Jones last night. And for those of you who may or may not know, Quincy Jones was a big influence for myself, at least. Growing up, my first album that I bought, my first cassette tape that I bought when I got one of my first paychecks when I was 12 years old, living in Hiroshima, Japan, on Iwakuni Marine Corps Air Station, was Michael Jackson's Off the Wall. And he had a big influence to do with that album. One of the most amazing albums for me in my life, going raised up, and I didn't knew nothing about Quincy Jones, but what I did know was he was everywhere. Everybody always talked about Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones this. Matter of fact, I had even heard the rumors that him and Frank Sinatra were hanging out, and it was Frank Sinatra who called him Q. From later on, as I read, he was the one that gave him the nickname Q. Of course, his name is Quincy, so what would you call him? And back during those days when he was one of those jazz bebop guys, as they called him back in the day, Q, to give everybody that little that initial moniker, that there's the Q, there's the D, there's all those names, and he was just Q, and so influential in my life. I used to listen to that cassette tape and knew nothing of the stuff that Quincy Jones did until like in the early 90s, when it was like a comeback of music and R&B and rap was going on. Everybody was doing a song with a little rap R&B hook in it, and Quincy Jones was behind it all. Quincy Jones had brought out Thriller, and still to this day, I think we just ran through Halloween, and they're still out there doing that Thriller dance to this day. So my thought today was, let's just talk about the influence of Quincy Jones and music in general. How it has affected us, how it has made us feel who we are, how it helped us get to where we are, and it's just his influence. What brought it about for you? Again, going back to where I came from, as a military brat living overseas, Japan was Japan. Growing up and getting that first cassette tape and just starting to get into music really seriously, because that first purchase, when you always remember that first purchase. I remember my first CD was Sade. So you always remember those first things when you get into buying music and doing things for yourself, when it means something to you, when it's not necessarily your mom or dad's old radios that you listen to, or old radio records, or whatever you listen to from your parents. When it's your own, it gets to be a little personalized. And Quincy Jones has influenced the music that I listen to, the movies. I didn't understand anything about um, Fred Sanford and Sanford and Son until I heard that sound, that beginning of Sanford and Son as it started off. That was one of those soundtracks that Quincy Jones did. When you hear that beginning, that harmonica sound, man, you just get to run to the hey, Sanford Son's coming on, Sanford Son's coming on. We come running around, get the family together, and everybody running to watch Sanford and Son. So just so many different things how Quincy Jones has influenced our life. Another way, more recent to a lot of people who may or may not know, he was the one who actually brought Will Smith into the fold with his television appearance. He was the one that brought Will Smith during a party and brought him out and said, "Hey, um, you got these studio execs right here, Will. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's show them what you can do." Will Smith at the time wasn't really ready for it, but he did jump in, and he did start to he showed his stuff. And if it hadn't been for that influence at that time, we would have not known Will Smith as we do today, as the multi talented superstar that he is. So um my question was, to each and every one of us here today, and the guys I'm bringing in, what has music done? And if you knew anything about Quincy Jones, what were your memories of him? What do you know about him and and his influences on music in your lives? So I'm bringing you all on here. I'm jumping off of this, and let me get in here. We got Gordon. We actually even got Robin in here today. I don't know where he's at. I see some flip flops or something sticking up here. But anyway, um, Benji, tell me, man, how has music been for you? And tell me what do you know about Quincy Jones?
Music, I got you. I got you track a little bit. I got 8 track. My first thing was 8 track. That was back in the day. I can't actually. I was in West Texas, so it's got to be some country music like Baba Mandrell or something like that, right? So that's what I remember. So, but music played a big part for me, right? So I grew up, especially in the late '70s and early '80s. So that was during like the disco days, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Let's see, the Commodores. I remember the Commodores. I'm almost sure I got the Commodores. I got Lionel Richie, like I think 3 times the lady. That was probably one thing. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of my very first track was Neil Diamond, "Come to America." I remember that a lot because that was
That was your
sweet.
story, huh? That was your
That
story.
that was my story. But for me though, when I got first to West Texas was the Eagles. Um,
Mm.
new kid in town, because I
Ah.
was new kid in town. I was the Eagles, right? That was my jam. But I with related to like I actually got the off the wall album as well too. But I got an LP back then, right? So
Mm.
and I remember Quincy doing like "We Are the World." I remember that with
Oh.
Richie. That was a big deal for us back then. The AIDS and things like that. That was a big deal. But I grew up like it's kind of like I grew up like I said during the disco era. The Bee Gees, Andy Gibbs, that was a big deal. Donna Summer, right? Shaka Khan, right?
Oh.
Shaka Khan, and of course, like once I graduated, like I mentioned, I went to Minnesota. I was there after the '84 release of Prince, Purple Rain, at First
Oh.
Avenue. So
Yes.
I actually got to see that. So during the '84 '85 tour, I saw Prince, I saw Madonna, I saw the Jackson Five Victory Tour. That was the thing, right? That was what it was thing. So and that was kind of my cry, and of course for me, because you and I are athlete, so it was always like the Rocky theme. Eye of the
Ah.
Tiger. I remember that song when the Eye of the Tiger come on and that theme come on. We just we just running. We were doing whatever we had to do to train. I remember because I hated doing the mile run, and I'm just chasing people. I can't handle this quarter-mile run. I keep doing it, and that's the music. That was my jam, right? And then of course, during the hard time, it's always kind of like you have that music you go to. And for me, like I told you I lost my friend and stuff like that. We always play musical quiz together. Like he and
Mm.
I can hear like a couple notes. We know exactly what song it is. For him, it's always rock. He always knew Pink Floyd. He always knew the '70 rock. Things like that. Like was that his thing was really more of like a Kiss. He loved Kiss. Oh
Ah.
my gosh,
Mm.
that was
Yeah.
back in the day. So and I enjoy that a lot. And I remember we did a lot of those. And Peter Frampton. Oh my God,
Oh.
Frampton. And then that was a jam we would listen to. And then ELO. You know, that was
Mm.
that was so I got like, but I got a little more broader. I went to see Prince. I saw Sheila E. um, and things like that. I never got saw like Janet Jackson, things like that, but but plays there was like Tina Turner, right, things like that. We did that, so I got to see some of those early days of those things. That was pretty cool. And as I got older, it's still the same. There's like, if I want to code, truly code, it's neither classical Beethoven, like like uh, Symphony 7,
Wow.
or or Dark Side of the Moon. We wore that album
Oh,
to the bone.
wow. Wow. Let me ask you this before I pass this on over to Gordon.
Yeah.
So you ran marathons.
Hmm.
Running marathons. Did you did you use the technology and listen to music while you ran? Trained? Was that
No,
something?
actually, that's the weird part. I during the run of the marathon, I really don't listen to that much at all.
Oh, okay.
Like once it's like it's the weird. Once you get into that zone, you can't really hear or feel anything. Like
Mm,
there'll be a point like in the race, I would just zone out. I don't even remember like, but then like I will wake up like mile 26 or 24, like, oh, I'm in pain, right? But I
okay.
won't remember in between at all. So I was pretty good with that. A lot of people use a lot of a little bit here and there, but in general, I don't. I I do more like a noise canceling thing really, because at the time we didn't have like an iPod or an
Right.
iPhone, right? It was just a little radio that you just put the ear on, and it was just more of a noise than anything else.
So
But
did you try it though? Did you say, you know what, let me try it? And what was that for you?
no, actually, the reason I didn't try because I wanted to hear the natural sound.
Okay.
Because when I start running, I can the wind and the nature
Right.
is especially when we train. Matter of fact, one of the reasons I love going to California, I know Half Moon Bay. We used to train at Half Moon Bay. We used to train up there in the Big Sur a lot. We used to go up there and just train like crazy. And I remember I was in San Diego. We were training in San Diego and La Jolla, as well as Coronado Beach. The whole team was there. We were running around. So that's how I kind of, got connect with it. But yeah,
Mm, mhm. Well,
yeah.
Gordon, tell us, man. Pick up from where I dropped off at, and add in some of Benji in there. Tell me how has music affected you and Quincy Jones?
Man, oh, Quincy Jones. As we know, Quincy Jones is a legend. So I grew up in the late '80s, early '90s, and I grew up with rap music. And it's hard to find a rap song. I mean, that's maybe an exaggeration, but I mean, there's so many rap songs that sampled Quincy Jones. Um, and because he made so much music during his lifetime that and just really good music, like not just he just didn't just put out a lot of mediocre stuff. He made a lot of really good music, and so rap artists would go and take a piece of it and maybe loop it or turn it backwards or whatever the case, and they'd make a melody from it, and then they add a beat, and then they go rap to it. And in the early years of rap, due to just the lack of resources, it usually was just a quick little beat and maybe a little melody or something, and then the lyrics. And
Mm,
so you could just search up Quincy Jones sampled rap songs, and the list is just
mm,
it's a very long list. Such a huge influence. One of his children, Quincy Jones III, is probably one of the biggest rap producers in just rap music in the industry. He's a huge producer in the industry where he's produced music for a lot of artists. I think he even did some video production documentaries and whatnot, I think, at some point, but he was a huge part of that. And so between the two, you have one, you have Quincy Jones, who is just being sampled over and over again from such a huge catalog or library of music. And then his son, doing what he did, producing a lot of music for a lot of these artists. So I grew up with a lot of that. Um, and it's been a huge influence. And I've switched between different like places where I go for my music. And right now I've been utilizing YouTube Music as my source for music right now. And I think YouTube, just because it's part of Google, it's probably got one of the bigger libraries out there that you can search through and find stuff and whatnot. And so I have plenty of playlists and Quincy Jones, either in his original stuff, which not a lot of original, I would say probably, but a lot of stuff that he produced for other artists is a huge part of my library, and then stuff where he was sampled. So it's a big part of my my growing up with music, I guess.
well, so going before I jump on over to Robin and asking him, what would you say is your top five genres of music that if you have a top five, do you have a top five genre of music?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Rap music is my number one. It's my go-to. You know, it's probably 75% of the music that I listen to. I like 70s, 80s, and a little bit of 90s, like funk, soul, R&B, stuff like that. I like a lot of reggae music, and then I like some classic rock. Um, and I don't know if that's five or not. I can't remember, but those are probably my top genres that I go to.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Listen, before Robin, I want to break it to you because I want to ask you. So when I used to work in the prison, there used to be this show. What was it called? Oh my gosh. This woman named Celia Cruz. And listen, when this woman came and sang in the prison, these inmates would get the quiet, they stop whatever they're doing, and they watch Celia. She's go Candela, Candela, something like that. She would say something like "light it up," I think it meant, or something. And then these guys in prison would lose their mind. They loved her. She was an older woman. She was like, I guess, um, man, she was a queen. She was literally a queen. I didn't know anything about her. Dark skinned woman and had a command on that daggone on that stage wherever she was at. And those guys went crazy. And when she passed, let me tell you something. It was a solemn period of time in that prison. You could literally feel it. They would show the highlights on TV, and everybody be doing all this slamming down dominoes and doing whatever they're doing, and they stop and they would look at that TV and they would get up and walk over there. And I say all this to say, Robin, has there ever been a musical influence on you where you, oh man, man, old boy from the Fat Boys died, I don't know, has there ever been a time where there was a musical influence in your life that came about that made you reflect on some of the music that you like when you're growing up or something that was very influential for you? That's my question I bring to you, Robin. Turn on your mic. Turn on your mic, please.
Not so much where somebody dies, I guess. I mean, my relationship to music, I think, is a little bit different from most people because I find that as much as I like music, I'm also someone who doesn't really like music that much because I often find it very difficult for me to find music that I like. It's like like how there's some people who they can't drive a car without the radio on. They're like, if I'm driving, that radio's got to be on. And I'm like, if I'm driving, that radio better be off, because nothing comes on the radio that I want to hear. And the older I get, the less interested in general music. Like for example, popular music. And I'm one of these guys that I'm not a good representative for a music lover because I just don't love it. I like classical music, certain songs. I like country music, certain songs. I like certain songs out of every genre, and then that's it. And I really, really struggle to find shit I like. And then there's a lot of stuff I really don't like at all. And and so it's interesting because when you say that, because despite the fact that I'm classically trained musician, and being Asian, you have to learn music, you have to understand music, you have to be able to learn how to read music. You grow up. I mean, Benji's got a piano in the background there. I'm sure kids are all learning, taking lessons, learning how to play that thing. It's all part of the Asian stereotype, right? And yet it's very difficult for me to listen to something, even classical music, which I would say, if I was going to say, okay, what do you really like? What would you be think? Even classical music, I would say, okay, I love classical music. I play classical music. I study classical music. I take lessons in classical music. It's very difficult for me to listen to a piece of classical music all the way through from start to finish.
Okay, hold on. I had to jump in because now you self-taught yourself violin, cello. What was that? Viola was the violin, right?
Violin,
So now
violin.
you got to respect something.
I
When you
respect.
talk about when you're listening to some music or I get an instrument and I'm learning how to play a new instrument. I'm learning Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I'm learning
Right.
something that's going to be, okay, now I kind of like and understand the story behind Twinkle Twinkle Little Star because now that I'm learning it, there's something I got a little more respect for. So you can't say that you don't respect music now. You can't, you're not telling me that now.
No, what I'm saying is that I don't enjoy it the same way a lot of other people do.
So what was the catalyst before you learn to play the violin?
Well, I'm learning to play the violin because I have a violin, and I inherited this violin from my grandfather. And I'm also half Chinese. And if you have Chinese, you either play the violin, the piano, or if you're a girl, we might let you play the flute, but most likely piano or violin.
Really?
That's all there is to it. I mean, you turn in your fucking China, you turn in your Chinese passport, you don't play piano or violin.
So okay, hold on. Let me ask you this, Benji. Now, in your culture, what is your instrument of choice in your culture?
For us,
Yeah,
it's always going to be the drum. That's more tribal for us. Yeah.
really?
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, Benji, that's cultural. But I mean, if you
Yeah.
grew up in Bangkok with an affluent family,
Hmm.
those kids are taking lessons, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I didn't do that. And honestly, music is
Right, because
really,
you said you
yeah,
didn't have any money, but I mean, if your
yeah,
parents could have afforded it, they would
right.
have said, "Yeah," you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It had nothing to do with a choice. That was
Yep.
a right, given free
Yep.
choice. I mean, you can't sit there and talk about drums. You don't have no drums in the background of your room. You got a piano.
I know, but for me, music is really just math. There's nothing more than math, right? So
Right.
nothing more. But I will tell you this though, and I was not a big Beatle fan. I never was. And then when Leonard got shot, I cried for some
There
reason.
you
I
go.
cried for days because that song, Imagine, was just gut wrenching. But my favorite writer of all time is Bob Dylan. I mean,
Mm,
I love Dylan,
mm.
and then it's just back to my root of writing and poetries and things like that. Now the man can barely sing, but but the whole idea, if you do that right, like a lot of song that is covered by somebody else, right? Was that Hendrix cover a couple of song, right? Things like that.
Mm.
So, but his writing skill was phenomenal, right? Things like that. That's for me. That's more thing. The Beethoven and all that. The classic. I listen to classical right now. It's like there's a on Amazon Prime. There's classical for pets or classical for focus. It's that's on my room all the time because
Mm.
that's what I listen to, right? But when it comes down to like just regular stuff, I mean, that's for me, it's definitely like classical rock, right? Zeppelin was a big thing for me back in the day, and Hearts was a big deal. Black Sabbath was a big deal, right? For me, that was because I grew up here in the United States. That was a big deal, right? And things like that. I enjoy that. But for me, lyric was a big thing.
Mm.
But but yeah, the piano and things like that. I wish I was musical, but I'm not. I can't carry a tune. I'm one of those people that can't carry a tune. And my friend, she's like, "You got no gene from that side of the world, do you?" I was like, "No," because it's math. Everything is math to me. Yeah.
Saying that, Gordon, let me ask you: have you ever, because we're talking about playing instruments, are you musically inclined that way? Did you ever say, I want to learn an instrument, and I'm going to learn it? Did you ever get something like that where you were pressed and decided that you were going to, just on a limb, I'm gonna pick up a kazoo and I'm gonna go at it?
Kazoo, I like that. No, like Benji said, there's not a whole lot of rhythm in my step either. So that playing an instrument wasn't something that that really grabbed me that I said, you know what, I'm going to learn this thing or whatever. So no, unfortunately no, but I do. It's strange, right? I love music, but I don't have the rhythm to
Yeah.
create any kind of music in any way.
Mm.
Now I got good ear though. I can hear things really really well. And I remember like we also Brian and I also listened to Queen when like was that Ice Baby came out. I'm like, wait, that sound like Under the Pressure. I'm like, this, it's like, did he just sample that? And we were like, no way. And then later on, we realized he did sample Ice Baby, from
Mm.
Under the Pressure, things like that. So I have really, really good ear to hear things, right? I mean, like my left ear, when I'm like, this is the weird part. If I'm really, really stressed, I mean, I can hear a pin drop like a block away. That's the focus I have, right? And that's the hard, but I can hear really good that part. But being able to create it, no, I have no patience for it.
I know, Robin. What you got to say, Robin? I can see you chomping the bit. What kind of comment you got to say about that?
Oh, it's funny because, like I said, I, I used to think that I liked music,
Mhm.
you know, uh, and then a few years ago, like maybe 7 or 8 years, maybe 10 years ago, I would get into conversations with people, like this one, and I realized, wow, I am not a music lover. Uh, Case in point, right? I play the violin, the piano, and the guitar. I've been trained to do these things. I can read music. I can write music. Uh, I know all the composers. I studied it. I actually have to spend time. I spend about 2 to 3 hours a day studying music.
Hold on,
Even
hold on,
today. Even
hold
today.
on. You can't say that. You can't say this right now that you do that to. You can't say that right now. You can't tell me that, and that you don't like music.
Well, here's the catch, right? Here's the catch. Here's the evidence. I had no idea who Quincy Jones was,
Really?
right? Can't stand Bob Dylan, right? I mean, I don't know how many times you're going to repeat. It's a Rolling Stone. Here's another one. This is going to shock you guys. I didn't know who Lennon was until he died, until he got shot. And even today, when Benji said when Lennon died, I thought he was talking about the Russian communist leader.
Now,
It
now listen.
it took a second for me to. I mean, I figured it out, but it took a second. I was like, Benji, not that old.
You know. It's funny you say it too because it was 1980. I
Yeah,
was in Japan, and I
yeah.
remember that morning listening on the radio. They talked about John Lennon, and I did not know his music that well myself either. But I remember I remember feeling the anguish that it was the way it came across on the news, and everybody when you talked about, man, John Lennon got shot, it was like, wow, it really affected a lot of people, and that's when I really realized there's a lot more stuff going on than my own little world, But yeah,
Well,
that Lennon thing was big when you
it,
mentioned it,
it's
Benji. I'm gonna
it's funny
say
because
that.
I was in Texas. I was in Houston when he got shot,
Mm.
and I was in a room with a friend of mine, and he was watching. We were watching TV, and it came on, and my friend goes, "Oh my God, Lennon got shot!" And I was like, "Who's Lennon?" And yeah, he thought I was a fucking alien. So as evidence that I think I like music and I do all this musical shit, but I am not a music lover the way other people are. It's just crazy. It's all a matter of it's music for me is almost like math is for you guys. You studied math, right? All of you, even if you don't think you're good at math, you studied from grade 1 to grade 12, at least for 12 solid fucking years. You guys studied math, right? You're not math lovers, right? You know,
That's true. I sure couldn't stand math. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Right, right. You
Not
did
like
all
math
that.
at all.
Right. And so for me, music is a discipline. And yes, there are some pieces of music I think are just amazing. I love them. But as a general thing, I'm actually disappointed in myself that when some people can sit there and say, "Oh, I'm going to listen to this new Alexa, stop." Some people are going to listen to this new song, right? And and I listen to it and I'm like, how the fuck can you listen to that shit? Just another goddamn pop song. They sound all the same to me. Uh, you know, my next door neighbor is Tracy Chapman. I mean, what the fuck, right? It uh, and I like one of her songs. I don't like any of the others. There's just a one hit wonder. I'm like a one hit listener.
Yeah. Listen, to me, I think that the amount of time that you took to get into it, because I got a video of you. I don't know how I got it. You must have obviously you sent it to me, and I remember you talking about you taught yourself, and when you first started, at least that's what I was under the impression of, and that was a few years ago. You were playing that thing, and I was like, remarking to my wife, like, look at this. Robin has just picked this thing up and just started playing it. And dude, you were getting into it. So that's why I'm like, you're saying you didn't have this influence. And then you say you practice 2 hours a day, or there's 2 hours a day that you're in it. Come
Two,
on,
two,
man.
2 to 3 hours.
Math
Yeah.
ain't
I
mathing,
mean,
dude.
today, even I schedule it. That's not, I just picked it up. We're talking 2 to 3 hours a day for the last 3 years, every day, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. See, you use music differently, right? For
Right.
me, it's like for me, it's literally about always gonna be is about success and things like I do. So I remember going to Tony Robbins. We use music for NLP, and this song by Tina Turner, "Simply the Best," was playing every day, every morning. You get up, you get psych up, "Simply the Best," better than all the rest. I mean, these are things. And then when we're like training for other stuff, it's like like the theme for Rocky, "Eye of the Tiger." It's like that one song talking about being hungry. When I'm like down, I'm all over this. I am like, let's go, let's go. It's like if I'm down, I mean, every day, that's what it is. For us, that was for me. That was my music thing. I can't create those kind of music, but I love those. Now, the reason the Lennon thing was a big deal for me was because it was the first time that I heard Imagine, and then all of a sudden he was gone. To me, that was a really soulful expression of like spirituality for me, right? And in a context that I could actually understood in English for the first time, and then he was gone. And I knew he was not a nice person, but oh my Lord, to go like that was cruel, right? Things like that. But the other stuff is really all about the word for me. So if I don't want to hear the word, then I'll go listen to like I love like Latin, Cuba and all that because I couldn't understand the Spanish, but the rhythm are there, the old kind of that. And I remember like first time I got into a jazz bar, I'm like, oh my Lord, what is that, right? Because it's all rhythm, is all that. Like George Benson would play the guitar. I'm like, what in the world is that? And these are things that help you kind of help your energy and go from there. But I will tell you this: if I get truly, truly stressed, I would have somebody play the piano, and that vibration on the piano would hit my body, and that's helped me heal and kind of like slow me down a lot. That's why I love the piano more than, and the drum is the opposite. It's the motivation. It's that thumping and that rhythm and that go from there. But that vibration that hit my body, that is a big deal with me, especially.
I'm just curious. We're talking as you're going through these different genres. Um, has everybody here been to a drum circle at all?
Yep.
Those matter of fact, I got a guy named Aki down here. He does them
Hmm.
pretty much every week, and I started doing that just recently, more recently in this side of my life than I did in my past.
Hmm.
And those are some of the most energizing,
Hmm.
relaxing, therapeutic things that you could ever experience. And I never realized just first and foremost how primal it is. Just that boom, 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 and everyone has their own little piece they add to it, And remarking on that because there was a period of time when I went to my first one, we were out here and we were playing these drums in this area out here in Carlsbad, and that sound permeated the whole park. This guy, he came running out from miles. He said he heard the sound and he just followed the sound. Came and brought his drums. This guy just came out and he was like, "Oh man!" He just started telling us a story how he was an ex drug addict and this and that, and he just remembered his life. And he was just, I mean, I was like, dude, I don't even know who this guy is, and this guy just comes out of the woodworks with his drums, and it just united us all. I started following a guy, and he came from Florida, and he ended up committing suicide. And I'm not trying to put this as a downer, but it's just one of those things where that music just has something, and it pulls people from all different areas, and he associated that with that pain that he had, and he just heard that sound and like, I got to be a part of it, and he ran out, joined us in our circle, and I just thought that was amazing because I thought that when you said Benji, that whole thing about John Lennon dying, because that was strong when it hit me. That was so strong, and I didn't know much about the Beatles because it was just whatever. Music is music. I also didn't realize that one of the biggest exports that the United States has is been music. We sell music probably more than anything else, and the stories behind it. American Idol is one of those big stories that you can look at and see exactly how they turn some lowly little person, because it's really just glorified karaoke, if you ask me. You get these guys on American Idol, and you turn them into stars, and now they're winning Grammys and Oscars and things like that because we put them on the pedestal. So kind of a little drifting with the music thing, but music is very powerful. And the fact that you hadn't heard about Quincy Jones, Shin, doesn't shock me because there's a lot of musicians and artists and people that I don't know that I've been consuming their content for years. And when I think back of propaganda and Americanism, man, all I thought about earlier was, when you watch these commercials and all of a sudden you hear that song, "Have It Your Way" at Burger King, something, and these things just they're worms that get locked into your head, and next thing you know, you're out there consuming that item, and that music there is just it's like, what is that called? They ring the bell in Pavlov's
Hmm.
theory,
Yep.
and you
Yep.
start salivating and
Yeah.
things like that. So I don't know. That's my
I
little rant on that. But go
yeah.
ahead, Benji. What you got to
No,
say?
I use that right now to train me right now. Right now, I'm using that drum beat that I have. Like I splice it with my affirmation. I listen to every night because I know this, this election is coming. I know what I got to do, and I want to get my mind ready for that. So I actually I download this drum rhythm that I have, right? I splice it with my affirmation, and I looped it. So I played it every night, but it also had this sequency of like other what do you call that, like the 432 frequency, all these and so you put R in there and that, but the thing is that's up in the brain. But the thing, like you were mentioned with the drum circle, that really is the body. You heal that whole body, and I remember like a Tony Robbins, when he played that on that speaker, that voice came and hit you, that song, that big speaker. Oh my gosh, so when you go to a concert, it's like that, and those are the things that I use that as a tool to really connect to my soul and get from there, um, but I like words, right? I love music of that that type, so that's kind of what my thing is. But yeah, but yeah, definitely Leonard, and then like when um Freddie Mercury passed, that was another one, right? Things like that. That was a tough. When Prince passed, I was like, everybody pinged me because they knew I was a big Prince fan, and Michael Jackson too. It was like, oh my lord, it's like they're gone already. You know, Michael was like 50, and then Prince was like 55, maybe. So I mean, it was crazy. They just announced just a little while, like 10 minutes ago, Prince's sister passed away. Ha-
Yeah, I heard that. I
It's like
did hear that.
it's crazy, but that's what I think more so than anything else, music have this cross cross gender, cross culture wise, if it's good music, it's good music no matter what. I don't care what genre it is. I don't care what it is. If it's good. Period. And it's everlasting. I remember the first time I ever heard Nat King Cole. I'm like, what is in the world is that, right? And the first time I heard the song Autumn Leaf, I was like, oh my lord,
Mm,
you know. And
mm,
then when he sings that, and you're like, I'm like, what? Like
yeah,
that's like little heaven in the world.
mm, mm. I hear you. I hear you, Gordon. So outside of rap, what's your go-to motivational? Like if you're in an office space, you can't necessarily listen to rap. Now I don't know what type of rap you listen to, but outside on your office space when you're out there being, should I call you Ranger Gordon? you know,
No,
what do
no
you listen to
Ranger.
when you're in the office? I mean, you know,
So it's a great question because the music that I listen to has a lot to do with where I am and who's around me and all of that. So yeah, when I'm by myself, it's different than when like the wife and kids are with me, or when my boys are with me, or at work, for example. And so usually when I'm looking for a safe, you know, uh, as far as the lyrics and the language goes, safe music, it's usually like some funk or some soul or something, some um I don't know, like I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden, but like Lakeside, I really like Lakeside. Come Function, I like Come Function. um some of that old school, like I some of the music that I listen to is even before my time, because like I would listen to it through the influence of like my uncles and people around the neighborhood that I grew up in. And so a lot of the old school stuff like Funkadelic, I really like, George Clinton and them. um who else?
hold on, girl, but
The
you
Whispers.
got to talk about your culture, though, man. Your cultura. Yeah,
You know,
what about like your wife? She listens to what? What does your wife listen to? Because I know she's not
she
listening to rap.
listens to mostly cumbia and some
Here we go.
salsa.
So
Yeah.
so so has that grab hold to you yet? I mean, that's part of who you are. Is
I
that
Well, I mean, part of who my, past generations, I guess you could say. My dad's from Mexico, and so there is that influence. Like I like a lot of the rancheras, the old rancheras, and
there
the
you go.
the, the
There you
corridos
go.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I like that, and I actually do listen to that. And so, but when I'm trying to talk about the music that I like, I don't focus so much on what happens to be playing and I can vibe to it. I focus on when I actually grab my phone and I'm searching for what I want to listen to, what do I choose? And those are them. And so, but yeah, I do have I have a playlist that's like corridos and rancheras and stuff like that
Mm,
that I listen to, um as culturally speaking, right? And so
mm,
that I do definitely like that stuff. I do like salsa music, but that's not my culture necessarily specifically.
mm,
That's more Caribbean, Cuban, Puerto Rican. So, but I do enjoy salsa. um as far as like my wife, she listens to a lot of cumbia, and I'm kind of indifferent to it. It doesn't bother me, but I don't look for it, I don't seek it out.
mm,
But I grew up in I grew up in, I don't know. If you look at my pale skin, you can't tell by the way I look how I grew up. I mean, I grew up in a very Mexican neighborhood in Oceanside, a very Mexican household, as a matter of fact. And so like there was a time when I only spoke Spanish and I didn't speak English, and you can't tell by looking at it. And like my mom's Swedish Welsh, but and she liked the Beatles, but we didn't really have Beatles playing in the house. I didn't necessarily learn about the Beatles till way later. She liked she liked a lot of folk music. What is it, Jim Denver, or something like that.
John Denver.
John Denver. I didn't, but I can't say that I could say, oh, that's John Denver.
Mm,
Seals and Croft, like
yeah,
Summer Breeze, I think is
yeah.
one I really like that song, but I can't say that I could name a bunch of songs from them. Um, So yeah, I mean, I grew up when I was really young, Mexican surroundings. Then we moved to New York, and there was a lot of black culture around me. Then I moved back to California, more Mexican culture,
Yeah.
Samoan, a lot of Samoan culture, but Samoans kind of listen to the same stuff that anybody in that hood listens to. It's not there isn't really
Yeah.
I don't know how much culture there is in it, as far as like what Samoan music would be. At
Yeah.
least I'm ignorant to that, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, if I wasn't listening to rap because I was careful about the language, it would probably be like Lakeside or the Whispers or some of that late '70s, early '80s soul music, I guess.
Yeah. The soul funk. Yeah.
Mm.
That was a jam for sure. But yeah, that hit home. But I remember listening to a lot of Commodores and Earth, Wind& Fire back in the day. That was high school days, slow dancing and like with junior prom and all that stuff. I remember that in West Texas. Got that bell bottom and this big old collar shirt back there like that. Anyways, I'm so glad there was no YouTube back then.
Oh man. Hey, speaking of pre-YouTube, you know who's actually getting released sometime this year? It's a musical legend. The woman who actually killed Selena is supposed to be getting
Oh,
released supposedly like later this year. That's gonna bring up those record sales, and that's gonna I
no.
mean, especially in Texas, then
Oh yeah, yeah.
was it Tejano? That's what they call it, Tejano
Tejano
stuff?
music, Tejano music, and I remember Selena because it was big in West Texas.
Yeah.
She was getting started. She was young, and she was just getting ready to burst out, and then that happened, and everybody, actually, oh, I forgot that. That didn't impact me as much, my friends, because they grew up with her. Oh my gosh, it was a big deal. It's still a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
is. When she gets released, that's gonna be. I know there's a lot of little memes and people making little jokes
Yeah,
about shooting her. I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty crazy. That I mean, right in the very height of her and
yeah,
her staying power since
yeah.
she came out, Selena was absolutely amazing for what it inspired for a lot of Latino Spanish women at
Mhm.
that time. Man,
Yeah, but think about all the people that passed at 27. Hendrix, right?
Mm.
Amy Winehouse, right? Kurt Cobain. There's a thing about being 27. Who's the guy for the door?
yeah.
Um, you know, they all were 27-year old and they passed, right? Those are some of the key ones. And Selena was around 27 at the time too. So it was
Mhm.
crazy at that time, And
I know that one. It's Jim Morris.
Jim Morris, yes, that's the man. That's the man. The Lizard King. You should know the Lizard King. That is the
The
man.
rest of them are like what?
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
Here we go. You
yeah.
got 15 points for culture, Shin. That's
uh,
wow.
that's not
And,
just the culture that's growing between my
yeah,
toes either.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like Bob, like he won the Pulitzer Prize for writing.
Did he?
Bob Dylan. He didn't
Oh,
accept it, but
Oh, yeah, Bob. Yeah,
he
yeah,
won the Pulitzer Prize for writing, right? So that was a big deal. That was like $1 million some prize, and he didn't collect on it. That's crazy. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, he talked about what was going on at the time. He represented the
Mm-hmm.
culture at the time, similar
Yeah.
to how Selena did at the time with
Yeah.
the Hana
Hmm.
music.
Yeah.
And
I actually have a friend of mine that knows Bob Dylan
Yeah.
because Bob Dylan lives in Malibu,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he would tell us stories about this is about maybe 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
And Bob Dylan, I guess his grandson or his granddaughter went to the local school, you know, and so Bob Dylan went there, like bring your parents to school day. He went to the school one time and he played for the kids,
Yeah.
and the kids were all like, "Who's this old?" They're all complaining about some old guy some scary old guy playing the guitar, and I was like, you know what? This is one of the first times that I can relate to kids because if you say like a Rolling Stone one more fucking time, I'm gonna fucking punch you in the face.
I know, right? And the other writer that I really I didn't realize he was a great writer was Willie Nelson. He wrote Crazy, right? And I didn't know
mm,
he wrote Crazy. And I'm like,
mm.
oh my gosh, And then now he's 91. I'm like, and he's still kicking.
Whew. He's 91.
He's 91. Yeah.
Oh wow,
And matter of
wow.
fact, when we talk about, I don't think I've ever told you this. I moved to, I got to the United States in '74, and remember he was doing that July 4th, whatever it is. Him and Will and Jenny came to Big Spring and did a concert for the 4th of
Mm,
July thing, and I remember seeing Willie Nelson back then. It was
wow.
crazy.
Oh, Willie Nelson, man.
Uh-huh.
Wow. That's something. I was just gonna recall that there was you brought back someone's name. Just lost train of thought just that quick. Damn, forgive me, guys. But yeah, interesting. But great conversation, guys, today. Music has definitely been a big influence for us in all different ways, and motivational memories brings back tying with and growth. Financially has been well, I didn't even get into my story to my foray into rap prior to me going to the military. Had some friends that did some things in the music industry that I just said it was not going to make it, and I was like, I'm out. Going to the Air Force, and I didn't think the rap was going to make it, and he's flipped it around and has done really well with it. So it's just really cool to see that each of us in our own different ways has music has affected us, and somewhat still does. I mean, we all have our ways that music can keep us calm, can also fire us up and get us motivated, and also help us inspire us to do things that I remember this would happen when I was young, so I'm going to pass this on to my kids or things of that nature. So I thank you all for this conversation today. Another good one in the bank, and I will see you guys on the next one. Appreciate your time. Thank you, guys.